Today, we're going to talk about the power of BIPOC and diverse communities, developing your audience, the language of inclusion, creating inclusive content, as well as diverse teams. So, lots of times when we think about diversity and inclusion, we immediately go to HR. Okay. I have no HR experience. I am a true bred guerrilla marketer. Okay. So I look at D I look at D&I from a marketing perspective. So are you with me? All right, great. All right. So why should you create inclusive content? To include? Include who? Yes, ma'am. Yes, I love it. Anyone else? To grow revenue? Yes. I do say diversity drives revenue. Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Not to turn off customers. Yes. So all of those are good answers. I like to focus on the revenue, right? So diversity drives revenue, diversity drives growth. Now, when you look at the buying power of BIPOC and diverse communities, I'm laying it out for you, right? So if we focus on multicultural, which according to Nielsen consists of Blacks, Latinos, and Asians, we are spending nearly or exceeding, I should say, $3 trillion. Who wants a slice of that pie? Wait, who? You, apple, sweet potato, pumpkin. What? Oh, okay. All right. And if I have to be careful, right? Because when we say BIPOC, we're always talking about race and ethnicity, right? But let's expand. Let's go beyond race, right? We have the LGBTQ community. Globally, is spending nearly $4 trillion. So I want to think about your business, your product, your service. How are you marketing to the LGBTQ community outside of June, which is around the corner? Right? What product or service do you have that can be catered to them on a regular basis in order for you to tap into that $4 trillion market? I'm sure you have something, right? And then, as you know, Muslim Americans, they're coming higher in their rankings. We'll have them at $200 billion. And neurodiversity is gaining a lot of traction right now over the past 3 years. And they're at 30 billion. And I'm sure they're going to hit 100 probably within the next 3 to 5 years. Okay. So think about the buying power of these communities and how you can market effectively to them. So, what is inclusive marketing? Right? We know what marketing is. Inclusive marketing is not too much different, right? Think about your marketing strategies and tactics that can be, think about your marketing strategies and tactics targeted to a specific group of people, right? I'm pretty sure you're already doing something right, and you just need to do 1, 2, maybe 3 tweaks to target a specific group and do things better. Right? So we have a list of communities. Let's go beyond race. We have age, generation. I'm a geriatric millennial over here. Very proud of that. We have gender. We have LGBTQ. We have women. Right? We have military, and of course, socioeconomic status. And the list can go on and on and on. Even with socioeconomic status, we have education, income. Is so much we can cover. Right? All right. So we have our communities, right? We have these lists of groups. And another thing when it comes to diversity marketing, diversity is so broad. And we already know as marketers, we can't be all things to all people. So I don't want you to feel like you got to market to all of these groups. Maybe you just need to hone in on 1 or 2 groups based off of the representation of your organization and see how you can target them effectively. Okay. The same thing with content. There's so much content out there. Lots of times when we think about creating content, we default to one, our website, two, social media. True or false, right? We've been taught that our website is our hub, and nothing's wrong with that, right? It's our hub, it's our nucleus. And then, of course, social media is a distribution channel. Now, when it comes to creating inclusive content, what does that look like on your website? What does that look like on your social media? Every time we think about inclusive marketing, we're thinking about big marketing campaigns, advertising campaigns, TV commercials, right? But let's peel it back a little bit. So we have our website, social media, we have events. We're at an event. I think this conference did a great job having a diverse range of panelists from all backgrounds. So that's really good. How many of y'all have a podcast? Podcast? All right. What about your audience? You think you can be more inclusive with your guests or finding guests? So many times we default to our network. Look, I get it. I'm guilty too. We default to our network because it's low hanging fruit, right? But every now and then we got to step out of our comfort zone and see how we can add diversity into what we're doing, right? So, email campaigns, Twitter chats, people reach out to me all the time for that. Reviews, live stream, infographics, even if it's animations or cartoon characters, how can you be diverse with that type of content? All right. So, the target audience, right? This is probably a marketer's favorite thing. Target audience. It's all about finding the right audience. Finding the right audience can be crucial for your campaign's efficiency. Now, according to Yahoo studies, 54% of customers find personalized ads to be more engaging. Now, if I see an ad that says, "Hey, Michelle," I'm probably going to stop scrolling and reading. But what are the chances of that? Michelle's a common name, but what are the chances of that, right? And I think this is when we go back to saying representation matters. Now, it can sound cliche, but I know if I see an ad and there's a Black woman with the blazer on and she's talking about how to scale your business to six figures, seven figures, I'm probably gonna I'm probably gonna stop and read, right? So when you're creating these ads, this content, are you creating fair representation? Do you have positive visuals? You know, static images, videos, whatever the case may be, right? Because if you do, McKinsey states that it can increase your ROI up to 8%, or your sales by 10%. But how do you get to that target audience? You have to do market research. And I think one of the biggest things when it comes to diversity marketing is really about social listening. And we'll tap into that later. So, are you going to take some time to do some surveys, focus group, go to Twitter, what's trending, what are some popular hashtags, what are people saying, what is the water cooler topic, right? And you get that research, and then you can go to the planning stage and be like, okay, this is what we see out here. This is what's going on in the Twitter sphere and the social influence. How can we integrate this into our company? What can our marketing team do to create an effective campaign? All right. So they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So give me some words. What do you see? What does this picture mean to you? Say it again. Marriage? Okay, what else? What about the marriage? Okay. What are some emotions you're getting from this picture? Anger? Okay. And? All right. Okay. All right. But when you hear that anger, happiness, that's language, right? We're using language to describe how we feel. And that's why the language of inclusion is very important, right? So, language demonstrates how we navigate society, our workplace, communities, and in this case, our brand. I do think it's a fundamental element, a key element when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. How are you communicating with people? How are you communicating with your consumer? How are you going to communicate to this consumer that's a different demographic? I think one thing that is pretty common that I hear a lot, especially around election season, where well, you have election season and then the census, which was not too long ago. One thing that keeps coming up, I don't have any data on this. This is just personal conversation. But when it comes to the Hispanic or Latino demographic, they're like, we just don't want to receive marketing material that's translated. Like, we still want to be marketed to, right? We still want to be engaged. And I think that's important when it goes back to the language of inclusion. How are you engaging people in your marketing material? So you have to be intentional. So, what is the voice? What is the tone? Lots of times, a company brought me in a couple of years ago. They brought me in because when it came to their images, there was a disconnect. So they would have white families, family of four, um, I will say good income, right? All these things. Come here and spend your money, basically, right? And then when it came to black and brown families, it was like, well, if you're a single parent and you need help with childcare, we got you, right? Clearly I'm paraphrasing. Or if you have type 2 diabetes, come here and get a health screening. And same company, but two different messages. And my thing is, it's like, well, let's take a step back because we know that black and brown families are earning money. Their earning potential has 10x for the past 10 years. So they have families of four, they can spend money here. Like, we all need help in different areas. So instead of creating, let's remove the images that have negative connotations and let's create a holistic campaign that all people, all families can benefit with the services and products that you offer, right? You have to be intentional. You have to have a clear and concise voice. And then, of course, if you can add some elements of storytelling, that's a plus, right? So I want to say, I believe this is a Yahoo, 64% of people took some action after seeing an ad they considered to be diverse or inclusive. Right? All right. So, how do we get to the point that we're creating content? So, we're already doing these things. I'm just saying, let's take it a step further. Especially right now, this is the month of May. We're going into the latter half of the year, right? So some of us are probably in our planning phases. Well, okay, what are we going to do for the next 6 months? Um, the ladies that spoke before me, they did a great job when it came to marketing audits, right? So let's audit our brand communication. Let's review this. Are we really inclusive when it comes to our digital footprint? How can we be better? How can we incorporate this into our content marketing plan for the next 6 months, right? Think about the representation within your organization. What communities, who are the people that work in your company that are being represented, right? Is it Latinos? Is it LGBTQ? Is it Muslim Americans, people of neurodiversity? Who's in your organization? Can they be represented? Can they be highlighted within your content marketing? Because a lot of these, think about all of the historical dates, cultural dates. For example, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Can that be included in your content marketing calendar? It's possible, right? Social media, email campaigns. All right, so start internally, make sure you're brainstorming, planning, also do an audit when it comes to your digital footprint. One more thing is lots of times when we think about content marketing, we're considering audiences, right? New audiences, impressions, sales, clients, things of that nature. but also be mindful of your internal communication, right? How are you engaging your employees? Do they feel included with what the company's doing? So be mindful of that. I'm at a point now that I feel when I first started inclusive marketing, I felt like, man, HR and marketing need to have a talk, right? Those two departments need to talk. Now I think everyone needs to talk to marketing. Sorry, marketers. But but I think that's how important our roles are, right? Like every department needs to talk to marketing because we're just that damn good. All right. Oh, and then, let me go back. Also with the content, if you don't know, who can you partner with, right? What agency can you partner with? Who can you interview? Who's the expert you can reach out to? Maybe there's someone on LinkedIn that you follow, you admire. Hey, comes top of mind. Hey, I think you'll be good for this. We're working on this. Can you collaborate? Right? Don't be shy about that because we all don't have the answers. A lot of opinions, very few answers. All right. So, what are some of the mistakes in inclusive marketing? Right. So, from what I've seen, lots of times, starting from the, I guess, far side, um, there's no people of color on the team, right? Whether it's the marketing team, the planning team, there's no Black folks, brown folks on the team or decision makers. And because of that, it leads to either zero or minimum research or the company's moving on assumption. And then you have this. Y'all saw this week. All right. So I was really disappointed in Walmart. And the reason why I was disappointed is because in February this year, Bath and Body Works, they released their Black History Month campaign with their candles, right? And those candles are, I guess, kind of have the African slash Kwanzaa theme, whatever, but they missed the mark. Unfortunately, they missed the mark. Okay. And what happens when you miss the mark? You lose money. I don't know about you, but I don't like to lose money. I'm not a corporation, but I don't like to lose money. They missed the mark, right? And then it leads to backlash. You're trending, but not for the right reasons. So it's like, what happened? How did this get approved? What was the planning stage like? Who was the voice of reason? Was there cultural awareness that came up during the strategy session? Like, what happened? Like, this just happened in February, and then Walmart comes out with the Juneteenth ice cream this week, like on Monday. So many people have tagged me to comment. I don't comment on things like this on social media because it never. By the time I comment, there's another mistake. Like, unfortunately, right? And there's just so many problems with this, right? And I expect better from Walmart because it's Walmart. It's Walmart. They just could have done so much better, right? But it's like, what happened with the planning part? Was cultural awareness, cultural competency, did that come up in the planning stage? And that's the importance of creating inclusive marketing content, right? Even if you didn't hire a consultant, did you talk to a Black employee? And a lot of the Black employees, that's a whole nother issue, right? But like, did you run this by someone? And it's so disappointing. I guess because this is ongoing, I don't know how much money they spent on this, but because of the negative backlash, they pulled it off the shelf. They lost a lot of money, right? I don't know if you remember, might be about 5 to 7 years ago. Y'all remember the Pepsi commercial with Kylie Jenner? Right? So she walks up to the police officer handing him Pepsi, trying to show peace, but there was a lot of backlash because of cultural appropriation based off of the recent protest, and the Black woman was arrested, and da 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 da, right? Pepsi lost $5 million. They paid her one. Like, that's a lot of money to just go down the train, right? So let's be mindful when it comes to our content marketing efforts. All right. So, as of today, Gen Z is the most racially and ethnically diverse generation. These kids are out here, y'all, and they're not quiet, right? And I think another survey that came out earlier this month is, if I'm not mistaken, 50 to 70% of Gen Z is identifying under LGBTQ, right? These are the people that we're going to be hiring, right? They are very diverse individuals and inclusive. So, with that being said, how are we going to create inclusive marketing teams? These are the benefits when you do, right? You attract and retain talent. You have cultural awareness in the room. Hopefully, someone's saying, "Hey, don't do that. That's not hot right now," right? Enhance your brand, higher morale, innovation. Lots of times when we think about innovation, we think about technology, but it just could be new, fresh ideas. How can we do something different? How can we be more efficient? And of course, if we're more efficient, hopefully we're more productive, right? All right. So I strongly believe at this point in time, if you don't have an inclusive marketing strategy, you don't have a growth strategy. You can create all of these new product lines, services, packages, and long-term value of the client. That's important, don't get me wrong. But I really believe you have to have an inclusive marketing strategy to have the next growth marketing strategy. Any questions? I'm that good. I mean, come on now. It is Thursday. All right. But this is my information, so please connect with me, especially on LinkedIn. Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Hey.
So I just had a question. Like, I know you kind of gave a tip of if you create content that's supposed to be, inclusive, to pass it around. Do you have any other tips or tools? Like, let's say there's a company that has a low budget, so maybe you don't have the money to do a whole focus group or that kind of research, but just some kind of tools to ensure that you're not writing anything offensive or cliche, cheesy.
Yes, so I'm really big on collaboration and partners. So I would do one thing, depending on the size of the company, maybe send out an email and be like, hey, this is what the marketing team is working on. Would you like to chip in? Right? So kind of put it out there versus just defaulting to that individual for help, right? So kind of have them as I can't even think of the word. I don't want to say affinity group, but just a small group that you can, collaborate with. Uh, yes, subject matter experts, but I guess internally versus externally. So yes, thank you for that. Another thing is just also general research to see what resources are out there. I do think that diversity marketing is an Achilles heel when it comes to small businesses. One thing that I really try to encourage is think about your community engagement, right? What kind of community service can you do? Whether you're getting involved on the local level, as far as doing work outside, doing presentations, nonprofit work. I do think community engagement is another form of marketing that doesn't get um, elevated compared to all of the digital stuff that we do. But you can take your in-person community engagement and turn it digital because that's a form of content.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
Hi there. You gave us an example of where they missed the mark. Can you give us an example of where inclusive marketing worked?
Yes. So one of my favorite examples is Ben and Jerry's. It's ice cream. What I like about them, although it's ice cream, they have a very thorough blog. Like on their blog, you're going to see stuff about mass incarceration. You're going to see LGBTQ, Black Lives Matter, Stop Asian Hate, and they're an ice cream company, right? REI Outdoor, they have a great Instagram page. They have made great progress since the death of George Floyd, so 2 years ago, on documenting their, I guess, just their progress. They've done a good job incorporating Black and Brown influencers, which I think once again some of these communities get left out because they're like, oh, Black people don't hike. That's not true. I don't, but someone does. There's communities out there, right? So there's companies that are, really trying to do the work. I don't think they get as much attention because you think of Nike, Adidas, or some of these Apple, these big, big brands, but those are some companies that are doing it right. Yes. All these good catches.
So I guess my question is for the masses around this subject, and I'm a data analyst, but I'm very passionate about what you do. How would you consult with a company on how to be diverse, but diverse for not just their brand, but for the people that they employ and the people that they also work with, versus being diverse for profit? Because diversity, and then you have diverse for profit, right? So Walmart is a good essentially what you showcase was diverse for profit. Taken even far from the research that I've done, the Juneteenth word they actually trademarked. That's my biggest issue.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Versus just being diverse. And I think companies definitely need to hear someone like you speak on the difference between the two.
I'm out here. No, I think that's a good point, and there's so much that I can say, right? So I'll say this. One, cultural appropriation is very big in the Black community, right? One thing that I know I become very careful because if we go down the rabbit hole of historical context, we have slavery, right? And there's a whole bunch of stuff with that. And what's so upsetting about the Juneteenth thing is the fact that we know that Jews, the Holocaust, they had it rough. But that history is really sacred. Like there's no ice cream being made. There's no exploitation, being made out of the Holocaust. And I think that's what a lot of Black people and African Americans, it's like we want that same respect. We want our culture to have some sacredness to it instead of it being exploited and capitalized, right? And there's so much, that goes with that. Not just the ice cream, but music, film, like media in general. Another answer to your question is I actually have a different talk where I say the 5-point framework to inclusive marketing. And what I talk about is companies, this is when HR and marketing really have to work together because it's all about positioning. We're also in the great resignation, right? So companies need to be mindful of like, okay, how are you attracting candidates? How are you engaging employees? Obviously, consumer marketing, that's a given. And then how are you doing the community engagement? And listen, my mind's going blank on my fifth C, so I apologize. But I do think it's more of a holistic approach versus these isolated situations on, stereotypical negative connotations that at least African Americans continue to endure for the dollar. So, yeah. But it takes work. It takes a lot of work. Any other questions? Well, I sure do appreciate y'all.